Let me introduce some strategies and target industries of South Korean economy. First, strategy and target. In 1950s and early 1960s, South Korea had a policy of import substitution for economic development. And particularly, South Korea has economy of small size and light industry. What is import substitution strategy for economic development? This strategy was taken, still is taken by resource-rich countries. It was taken before in many Latin American countries, and these days many Southeast Asian countries with rich natural resources. With import substitution, countries are developing their natural resources and exporting those natural resources and make money out of them. And with those money, the governments are making the public sector projects nationwide and give the money to the people and increase the employment. But some countries like Japan or South Korea do not have any natural resources, so they did not take import substitution. So from the mid 1960s and 70s, there was a policy shift to the export orientation economic development strategy. Because this export orientation economic development strategy was taken by Japan in 1950s. After the defeat of the Second World War, Japan wanted to develop its economy, and it had two options: import substitution or export orientation. But Japan did not have much of natural resources. Japan took the export orientation economic development strategy. With this strategy, Japan imported great amount of natural resources, put a little bit of value by labor and capital, and produced the cheap products and sold them abroad, all of them. And that Japan could successfully maintain the high percent of the employment. With that strategy, Japanese economy showed a tremendous success. So from the mid 1960s and 70s, South Korean government had to face to change or shift developmental strategy. So it took the policy of Japan. It took the Japanese model, export orientation economic development strategy. So South Korea put heavy emphasis on heavy industry and chemical industry for export. Also maintained the high growth rates. During 1960s and 70s, South Korean government was authoritarian governments. Did not allow any civil society, did not allow any freedom of press, did not allow any labor unions, did not allow any human rights. So the authoritarian governments mobilized human resources and all of the national resources together and invest them to one target sector. First, heavy industry, steel mill, and other heavy industry. And 5 years later, in the successful 5-year economic development plan, government put another sector, another target, chemical industry, and poured all the resources it collected from nationwide. After 5 years, South Korean government select another sector and invest all the money and all the resources to that sector. Also at the same time maintain the high growth rates. So average growth rate those days was between 8 to 10% for about 30 years. For about 30 years. But in the late 70s, there were two oil shocks, 1973 and 1978, and the following energy price hike. required a fundamental transformation of economic development strategy for South Korea. From the labor-intensive and to capital and technological intensive industry. And I explained the export orientation and import substitution strategy. Now I'm going to explain flying geese and flying geese model. If you live in the northern hemisphere, you will see many birds are flying together, either in late autumn or early spring. In late autumn, the birds are coming down, flying down from the north in order to find a warm place for winter. If you look at the sky, those birds are flying. Many geese are flying like this. Who's the leader? Grandma goose or mother goose, female goose, with the brilliant capability of GPS. She could find the exactly spot which is about 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers away from their home. Other geese are following her leadership. So this flying geese model was made by Japanese economists. Japan was the mother goose in 1960s and 70s in Asia. So all the other economies, Korean, Taiwan, and Singapore, and other economies are following Japanese leadership, Japanese economic development plans. That's the flying geese model of economic development. So all the East Asian economies took the export orientation economic development strategy, like Japan did in 1950s. Also with this flying geese, Japanese economists made another theory, the boomerang effect. You know what the boomerang is? It's a traditional Australian hunting tool. It looks like this, a little larger size than this. And Australian tribes are throwing this boomerang to the target. If this hits the animal, and that's good, he can catch that animal. But if it misses it, the boomerang flies back, and the hunter catches that boomerang again. Now, Japan was the mother goose for a long time in East Asian economies, but some economies behind her was almost surpassing the Japanese national capabilities and hit Japan, particularly South Korea. So Japanese technology, which took off like a boomerang from Japanese hand and did not hit South Korea and coming back and hit Japanese economy. For example, the electronic industry. Samsung killed Sony, Sanyo, and all the Alpino, and almost all the Japanese electronic companies. So Samsung's yearly profit is more than 7 Japanese electronic companies' profits combined. Can you believe it? So that's the boomerang effect. So Japanese economy is hitting by the technologies which took off from Japanese hand and went to the Korean or Taiwanese hand, now hurting Japanese economy. Now we see the rising of the techno-nationalism. So Japanese government declared about 2 decades ago, it is not going to transfer any technologies to East Asian economies any longer. In 1980s and 1990s, South Korean economy shifted to computer technology and IT, auto industry, and shipbuilding. 2000s, a mobile industry and K-wave, K-pops, K-dramas, food, beauty. Have you seen the K-movies these days? I think they are wonderful. It's really fun to watch. In 2010s, biomedicine, robotics, and IoT. If we look at the transformation history of industry in Korea, it started with the labor intensive, 1950s and 60s, and capital intensive from 70s and 80s, technology intensive in 90s and 2000, and AI intensive is from 2010 to the present. What is IoT? That's the future target of South Korean economy. IoT means Internet of Things. Internet of Things. Literally, it means that all the things in the world, live things and any objects, have its own ID and unique identifier, UID, and they connect and exchange data with each other. They can use the cloud, or they don't have to. They can change. My computer, my palm, my cell phone connects everything in the world. Even a building, the streets are having conversation with each other. And the building has its own AI, and it connects the manager or plumber, so that water is leaking on a certain floor, and you got to fix it. The building itself, you send a signal to the manager. The manager and building can communicate each other. That's the power of IoT. This is the future strategy, future target industry for South Korean economy. And the IoT devices range from the ordinary household objects, refrigerator, or the fan, or air conditioner, or coffee maker, anything you name it, to sophisticated industrial tools. With more than 7 billion connected IoT devices today, but experts are expecting this number to grow to 22 billion by year 2025. And believe me, in order to survive and in order to lead the world in the 21st century, you gotta be familiar with IoT.